Hey everyone, I'd like to welcome you to the show and just remind everyone that we have shirts in the shop. Go to pgttcm.com. You can pick up shirts, stickers. We even have those shower curtains I was talking about last time. Also, you can join us on Patreon and get a free sticker. Check out the show notes and learn how you can be a part of People's Guide to the Cthulhu Mythos. Rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends, help support the show any way you can. Patreon users, you get a free sticker, at least. So check out what we've got. Show notes, that's where you're going to find our PayPal link and our sponsors and any information about any guests that are on the show and where to find them. Thank you.
You're listening to KZOM, Oleander Public Radio. Radio.
Greetings, listeners. It is I, TV Spitzer Informer Dave, here once again to talk to you about the Cthulhu mythos, its books, its monsters, its unfortunate human casualties, its timeline in general, and even its tangential bits, like the Dreamlands or things of a weird nature that are Lovecraftian leaning. Once more we head into those dark woods, further feeling those malevolent forces upon us. Once again we walk down the lightless stone staircase in the middle of nowhere.
You're listening to KZOM.
Hello everyone, it is me, DB Spitzer, and as always, to my virtual right, Farmer Dave. How are you doing this week?
I am doing well, but next week I'm going to sneak onto your virtual left just to throw the audience off.
Uh-oh.
We like to keep people on their toes here.
Yeah, I'll have to remember to set the laptop on the other side of my main computer that I record off of. Okay, so, hey, Dave, what's new in your neck of the woods?
Not much, we're kind of getting, that the rest of the world's getting hit by killer clown weather and ghost pirate fog, and we seem to be just, regular,
It's kind of chilly.
In January.
Yeah. Anything? Nope, sorry.
Big holiday celebrations coming up in about 3 weeks in Oleander, Oregon, where we're going to have John Fromm Day.
Yep, real close to my birthday.
Are you John Fromm?
I am not John Fromm, but I have been known to celebrate John Fromm on my birthday.
Oh, well, cool.
Yeah, I put on some fake soldier uniforms
that's cool. But then you get a pineapple, and it's like, shouldn't I get 2 pineapples, one for my birthday and one for John Fromm Day?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but I only ever get 1 pineapple. It's like no, it's both. It's both, and I'm like, ugh. When your birthday is really close to Valentine's Day and John Fromm Day, you end up with a lot of chocolates and a lot of pineapple and a lot of large aircraft made out of bamboo and reeds. Yeah. I totally scored today. I was going to A1 Grocery to pick up some energy drinks and canned water for recording today, because I always like to have that kind of stuff on hand. And I was walking past Pinky's house, and I don't think it's Pinky's, but I think it may be her roommate or her neighbor's. But I got a guitar stand and a sheet music holder, and I was like, ooh, score. So I double-checked. I shouted, hey, is this stuff free? And someone said, yeah, that's free. And I went, cool. So I got that.
It is cool.
I was really excited. I'm still jazzed about it.
Make sure it doesn't have any cursed music or any blood or genetic, leftover from a murder.
No. There is
you really ought to do that.
Yeah, there's a sticker on one that says "Welcome to Kingsport," and I looked for any etchings or any stuff like that. With this town, you really, no one puts anything outside unless it's a wine case cursed by a Dybbuk or a music box that makes you age slowly. It's stupid stuff like that.
Was there a sticker that said not used in multiple gruesome homicides?
There was not a sticker like that. No trace of...
still be okay.
Yeah, no. Not
someone might have pulled it off and still not used it.
Yeah. Not even in a previously owned by Eric Zahn on any of this stuff. So I was like, oh, Someone from out of town must have been here. And, yeah.
So you're speaking of getting, canned water and energy drinks.
Uh-huh.
They do have the Devil's Fizzy Water.
Mm-hmm.
The Devil's Fizzy Water has caffeine in it.
Yes, it does.
So good upstanding places like Boring and Sandy, you can't go get Devil's Fizzy Water. You have to get if you want your fizzy water with caffeine, you have to go to Oleander.
Yeah, it's a weird restriction in that part of Oregon. So, today we're talking about the Dreamlands, I think, right?
Yes.
What do you think is one of the first things that people should know about the Dreamlands?
So class, pay attention to Dreamlands 101. So I think that, first of all, Lovecraft, this was when Lovecraft really started thinking, hey, maybe I can make some money off of this. Mm-hmm. Maybe I can get some fame off it. And it's from basically 1921 to Dream Quest of the Unknown Cative is in 1926. Mm-hmm. Now, it's going to be mentioned in things like the Silver Key, it's going to even be mentioned in Mountains of Madness, but he really sort of jumps gears after 1926, kind of wraps it up with combines the Dream Quest of the Unknown Cadet with his cosmic horror stories by sending his author proxy or author avatar, Carter. Yep. Randolph Carter into this universe, and he started saying, "This is canon. Mm-hmm. So this stuff happened. It's in a different universe." But this, he sort of closed it out, and it's one of his better known stories. Yeah. One of his better liked stories, and he didn't really jump into Dreamlands a lot before that, or after that. Yeah. Was there anything else you wanted to say, or?
Nope, that's it. All right, everyone, on to the next topic. I wanted to, how do we get to the Dreamlands? I mean, I know from the game there's multiple ways to get to the Dreamlands, but I think Lovecraft just says he got a dream and walked down a bunch of steps and talked to two guys, and then you're there.
Pretty much. It seems to be almost a genetic thing, that you either had this genetic empathy to the Dreamlands, and you realize it's just more than just dreams, and it's this real world. And people that were either had it, it's like night vision. You either have this connection or you don't. Yeah. And Randolph Carter, had it. I believe there are also, and definitely this could be added by the games, it could be crossed through portals and spells. Yeah, and I believe there's even been, some people, I don't know if this is more homebrew or what, but people using, reagents or, drugs or something like that to reach the Dreamlands. I know Delta Green has had, am I thinking later Cthulhu, Call of Cthulhu stuff, had things about people using narcotics to get to a state that's more conducive to the Dreamlands. But yes, and I honestly, Lovecraft didn't turn away from drugs. Yeah, the main character in Dagon is addicted to drugs because of what he saw. Yeah. But what I really think sort of got this open the doors is Belknap Blanc's Hounds of Tenedalos. Yes. Yeah. So then we see, he travels in time with drugs. We see that there's drugs that allow you to withstand space while a Baki carries you off into space. Yeah. So I'm not sure if any authors really, or push the sort of the Dreamlands by drugs, or if it's Chaosium that sort of pushes that, sort of the drugs.
Yeah. I definitely feel like Chaosium, and I want to say it's like Masks of Nyarlathotep, or horror,
which don't go into because I'm like 20% into that campaign.
Okay, and horror on the Orient Express. I can't remember which, but I think one of them has like a Dreamlands section, and they make it so that pretty much a bunch of people can go to the Dreamlands. But I can't remember if that's actually that, or if someone swapped that out with another adventure.
Well, Chaosium makes an entire. They've done actually at least 2.
Yeah.
Dreamland supplements.
Sure. Yeah. And even the Dreamland supplements, I think there's something about drugs in there too. But it's been a while, and I don't have my 3rd edition Dreamlands book in the studio right now. So
yeah. But I think the drugs. So what we kind of see that is, and I think it's very important. And we're sort of jumping all over this.
Yeah.
Lovecraft was extremely influenced by Lord Dunsany.
Definitely.
In his Pangea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in fact, Lovecraft's pretty open on this.
Mm-hmm.
And there's at least one story where Dunsany has a guy traveling into what's basically the Dreamlands,
mm-hmm.
but also where the guy basically he gives up his daytime life,
mm-hmm.
his waking life. He becomes shamble, loses his job.
Yeah,
and I think that there's maybe a throwaway line about how he takes like sleeping pills to stay in the Dreamlands.
Yeah.
So definitely there, but absolutely, Lovecraft is influenced by the writings of Lord Dunsany.
Yeah. Can I tell you one of my favorite parts of the Dreamlands, since we're now going to probably go into a little bit of geography and things that we can find in the Dreamlands? My personal favorite area is the underground of the Dreamlands with the Vale of Panath, where the ghouls and the gugs and who else is there? Ghasts all hang out, all the creepy monsters in complete darkness, and I don't know, like yucky water, lake of gross water, and it's the part that I always am like, yeah, that's my favorite part of the book. But
and again, it's been expanded on.
Oh yeah.
But the part that I always liked are kind of the desert areas, mm-hmm. that are very reminiscent of Arabian Nights.
Okay.
Which we know is one of the most influential books on a young Lovecraft.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, let's see. What places does Lovecraft not mention? Celophaeus, which is its own story, which King Coronis created way back in the early days. Let's see. There's
Ulthar.
There's Ulthar, where no cats can be killed from the Cats of Olfar story.
And so Lovecraft, I mean, we're probably going to repeat this a dozen times, mm-hmm. took from Lord Dunsany.
Yeah.
But that kind of seemed to me kind of like some of the stories that Ambrose Bierce wrote.
Okay. Yeah.
So that kind of reminds me, of Hatia,
mm-hmm.
God of the Shepherds.
Yeah.
Which were kind of these sort of, I don't know how you describe morality stories, but that and, the Yellow Sign.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know, it's almost this, the Cats of Olfar is basically this sort of morality folk tale told in the Dreamlands.
Yeah, and Lovecraft being a huge fan of cats, I mean, I don't think I could write a story about people torturing cats if I love cats. I'm a huge cat fan, but I don't think I could write. I mean, my stomach's not in that. But yeah. Cats are a huge part of the Dreamlands. We first encounter cats in the Enchanted Woods that also is the home of the Zoogs, which are like little raccoon-type creatures with tentacles over their mouth, and they'll get you. Let's see, what else do we have? We have Ulthar, we have Diathleen. Sarnath, yeah, we've talked about Sarnath, the ruins of a great civilization. But yeah, let's see, there's Sarnath, what else is there? There's Diathleen, which is a port town. There is also unknowable Kadath, which is, spoilers, kind of where the domain of the great old ones and the gods of the Dreamlands hang out. Let's see, there's the Dreamlands moon, which can be sailed to by ship, or you can get there by cat. You still there, Dave? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and again, other people have come in the last 100 years and added things, but those are pretty much for something. That's pretty much what we have for something that pretty much went on from 1919 to kind of finishing up in 1926. Mm-hmm. We don't really have a lot of Lovecraftian Dreamland stories.
No.
There were probably more that were written. Mm-hmm. There were more some of the ideas. The thing in the moonlight.
Yeah.
That was just basically an idea that he had written to talk to, bouncing off Donald Wondering.
Okay. All right.
And again, I think that it would be very. We wouldn't do it justice to. We talked about cats. Lovecraft loved cats, but he had sort of this weird relationship with dreams.
Yeah,
where a lot of them were nightmares, and so a lot of his dreams are going to become stories.
Yeah,
and even ones that have been linked to by others into the dream cycle that I would not necessarily, but Nyarlathotep.
Yeah.
Nyarlathotep makes more sense having take place somewhere in the dreamland than it does in the real world.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure if Nyarlathotep was based on a dream he had.
Yeah.
And so I'm not quite sure. I've always sort of thought this off as a different dimension where, the world got wiped out by Nyarlathotep in the 30s. But if you want to really sort of put everything in canon, Nyarlathotep makes more sense, except for the fact that he knew what, electricity is happening in the Dreamlands than the real world.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, no, it does make for an interesting concept, but yeah, unfortunately, there is references to waking world events. It's a great story, and so is the Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath. There's a lot of stuff that I have to say. It's very reminiscent of a lot of like stories written around like the late 1800s, early 20th century, like these new American fairy tales like The Wizard of Oz, or even if we go back like a few years before that,
Knickerbocker Tales.
Yeah, and I was also going to even throw in like Alice in Wonderland and stuff like that, where you have these stories of like a person traveling, it's pretty much a travelogue through an unknown world, and the friends that they meet along the way, the people that they meet along the way, those that they defeat, and then at some point in time, I don't know, the whole story circle monomyth thing. that all these stories seem to share.
That predates Joseph Campbell.
Yeah.
Pilgrim's Progress.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Is another one.
Yeah, definitely.
Now I got another story, and I know we're jumping around, so but I got another story by Lovecraft that I think almost sort of, it takes place in the real world of Lovecraft, but it has very, very Dunsanian aspects and sort of picturism, and that's the strange high house in the mist.
Yes, yeah.
Which is going to be written in the 20s, in 1926. But it, like a lot of Lovecraft stuff which was published in his lifetime, it's not going to be really published until the early 30s, 1931.
Okay. Sure.
And which that you've got, that's almost a connection to. It doesn't quite say it, but in this art, this description, the paintings he sees, on the walls of the house, that is very Dunsanian.
Yeah. Yes.
And like most, it was published in Weird Tales, and like most, not all, but most Lovecraft stories, it was not the cover story.
Yeah.
Cover stories, of course, got. You got paid extra. If they painted the cover on it, you get paid extra. So that's why we got people like Howard are going to, put in some sort of titillation. But the cover of the Weird Tales that was published, that the Strange High House in the Mist was published in, has Tam, Son of the Tiger, which is kind of a Tarzan ripoff, fighting giant apes over a beautiful white woman.
Okay, yeah.
where if you think that, what kind of, if they'd done some sort of art, what was inside the paintings of Nodens and stuff inside the house, but that might almost be giving too much away.
Yeah, that's an interesting story, and very fantastical in a way that doesn't quite fit with Lovecraft's more Massachusetts type Arkham, Miskatonic Valley type stuff. Not very quote-unquote Lovecraftian, but also very Lovecraftian in the same way, just the dream cycle. One other place I wanted to talk about, we briefly mentioned the moon, but we did not mention moon beasts, which are eyeless white frog things. That I think, I can't remember off the top of my head, they either have enslaved the men of Lang or Sarkomon. Capital city of the men of Lang is abandoned and fell into ruins when the moon beasts enslaved the Langanites and take them elsewhere. Okay, cool. Yeah. All right. So Sarkomon. Capital city of the men of Lang. That's another place that is mentioned. There's all kinds of stuff that is mentioned, but I think we're going to go into those more specifically when we run across them, as opposed to just naming them all.
Sure. One thing about the moon beast, too, they were mentioned in a Marvel Comics.
Oh, cool.
Marvel Comics, has its own little dream cycle, dream world.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to take this back, that they're not mentioned, but they're described.
Okay.
They are so set up as, it's obvious what they are, but they never use the word.
Yeah.
And including, we'll probably cover this a little bit later, but the Earth of 616, which is the main Marvel universe, it has its own Richard Upton Pickman.
Oh, interesting.
And again, these were, not a major character, but there are a lot of, we got to remember that, especially the guys who wrote the comics, Denny O'Neil, Donald Wandry, in the 70s and the 80s, they were huge fans of pulp stories.
Oh, yeah.
Especially Lovecraft. And we get that, and they like to put in as much horror as possible.
Yeah.
Lovecraftian horror they could sneak in. And I'm sure we're going to cover that a little bit more.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, they do appear in some of the canonical horror stories.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. How many are from the negative zone? We'll talk about that some other time. All right. Anything else we want to talk about for the Dreamlands, just for this, like, kind of cruising it over?
Other than, and I think that they are somewhat, I think it's the nature of fantasy.
Yeah.
That fantasy is relegated quite often to juvenile, and that they're seen as, children's stories.
Yeah.
These aren't necessarily children. There is definitely a fantastic aspect to it. And it's not like serious adult things.
No.
But because fantasy in general is seen more as sort of a child.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of Lovecraft's Dreamlands are just overlooked.
Yeah.
Or sped through.
Yeah. No, I'll admit, first time, back when I first started reading Lovecraft, I just kind of skimmed through the Dreamlands stuff, looking for cosmic horror things and being like, this is boring. And then reading it again, like, probably 2 years later and going, okay, cool. All right, Ken was right. No, I didn't know Ken Hite at that point in time. But, Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, the Dreamlands, the White Ship, all that fun stuff is a really good collection. It's a nice kind of fleshed out world with enough stuff that's been kept ambiguous that other people can take the mantle of Lovecraft and go with it, take the torch and run. And I highly recommend that you check out Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath if you haven't out there, everyone. You're going to find, I'm sure, several audiobooks about it. I know at one point in time there was an animated version being made. I don't know if that was ever finished. And of course, there is the Chaosium sourcebook to the Dreamlands, which I really highly recommend. It's got all kinds of cool stuff. The older version, I don't know if there's a newer version, but the older version I really have always loved the illustrations in it. It's kind of that older style, black and white spot illustrations found in a lot of RPGs. But yeah, anything you want to throw into that pile of words there, Dave?
Yeah, so they definitely just Chaosium had two versions of the Dreamlands, and the first one you'll see, you'll probably recognize by the cover. It's a thinner book. It is black and it has basically like a wall of faces.
Yeah.
Then they reprinted it with about twice a lot of the original stuff, but twice as much.
And that's the one with the boat.
And on that one, you have like a ship and like a green, Poseidon. And it has most of the stuff at the first printing.
Yeah.
But it has a lot of later things. Again, a good portion of it is going to be adventures, including reprints.
Oh, yeah.
But the research there is amazing. So even if you're not a game player, and to be honest, I believe it was 4th or 5th that it was printed. So now the 7th E. I don't know if I'm not sure if there's a full Dreamland 7E out yet. I don't think there is.
Okay.
But even if you're not going to play the game, it's worth picking up.
Oh, yeah.
And you can get the original one at least pretty cheap, I think, on eBay. Maybe not. I got mine even when after it was old. I got mine at a game store, for like $5, and we're getting rid of stuff pile. So if you look out, you can probably find it. Yeah,
no, I remember finding my copy in a bookstore in Eugene, Oregon, and that's where I would go to buy Call of Cthulhu stuff. And apparently, a lot of people didn't play Call of Cthulhu in Eugene, but Stuff would pop up in the comic book RPG.
Get your acts together, Eugene.
Yeah, Eugene, Oregon. What else? All right. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to the show. That was Dave and I covering the Dreamlands. In just a moment or two, we will be talking about dimensional shamblers after the break. So, we'll see you then, everyone.
Hey everybody, this is David, and we're getting everything ready for the next season, and we're gonna get back to having regular interviews, but got a little bit of time, thought maybe we'd talk about something that is near and dear to my heart. We're gonna talk about an alien, a con man, a figment of somebody's imagination. Most people call it an entity. And that entity we're talking about today is Indrid Cold. Now, those of you who recognize the name and know who I'm going to be talking about probably first heard it in one of two ways. Either the book or the movie, The Mothman Prophecy. Now, before I go into Indrid Cold, I want to talk just shortly about and then leave the movie. The movie has certain things that John Keel said happened in his book, but a lot of it was never meant to be more than fiction. And let's be frank here, I often think that maybe a lot of what Keel wrote was meant to be fiction too. And the movie is horror in the fact that, after I saw it, I thought I saw red, glowing eyes in windows for hours afterwards. For what it is, it's a great movie in the fact that it's scary in this non-repetitive jump scare, blood and gore way that most horror movies are. Now, in his review of the movie, Paul Meehan, basically said, aliens don't really, spit out end of the world doomsday prophecies in UFO literature. Well, we've got to be reading different literature there, because from a lot of the stuff that I've read, especially the stuff that 50s, 60s, early 70s, where the Mothman prophecy supposedly happened, that's their bread and butter. Aliens were always spouting semi-pseudo Judeo-Christian, prophecies. So, yeah, and we've got to remember that this is also associated with the case where the term high weirdness was coined. It's going to be strange. It is interesting because it is strange. It is mysterious because it is strange. And bluntly, it is scary because it's strange. So in the movie, Will Patton plays Gordon Smallwood. Now this character is based on a real-world person named Woodrow Derenberger. Now, Derenberger definitely had his ups and downs. He didn't have an easy life. But he fares a lot better than the fictitious Smallwood, who basically seems to be obsessed by this and dies because he's left out in the cold, or was he murdered by this entity? That's one of the things that the movie leaves blank for you. That didn't happen. Derenberger will pass away, but he'll live much longer than his fictitious movie counterpart, and his death will be much less mysterious. So let's talk about the person or entity that is going to make Woody Derenberger famous, Indrid Cold. In November 1966, in West Virginia, Derenberger is driving home from work, and he sees what is probably the most uniquely shaped spaceship that's ever reported. And he describes it kind of like the chimney of a hurricane lamp. So it's sort of flared on the top and the bottom, and then it's tubular until it gets kind of flared out, becomes sort of almost egg-shaped at the bottom, and then goes tubular a little bit longer and flares out. For those of you who did not grow up with hurricane lamps, and then it basically lands in front of his truck. And this person comes out. And this person's wearing a coat, it's light blue, maybe a little lighter blue pants. He looks like a human being. But the thing that catches Derenberger's attention, and then later for decades, the occult audience and the people that read UFO and supernatural and cryptid stories, is the man's seemingly never-ending smile. This is where he gets the nickname the Grinning Man or the Smiling Man. And this is what pop culture is going to remember the most about them. And the fact that if you look at any paintings, drawings, sketches done of Indrid Cold in the last 20 years, maybe 30 years, almost makes him look like pre-Heath Ledger Joker. And I would encourage him just to Google it. Look at the pictures. They're decent art, and they're all out there. In fact, the most famous is probably going to be on the cover of the book written by Derenberger's daughter, and which is a bit ironic because it contains in it the only reported known picture of Indrid Cold at Derenberger's funeral. Doesn't look anything like it does on the cover, but we'll talk a little bit more about comparing Woody and his daughter's version of what Indrid Cold looked like. So Indrid Cold basically comes out of this spaceship, and there's at least one other entity or other person in the background. And he talks to Woody, but he doesn't talk using his voice. He is talking telepathically. And he's very interested in Woody. He's asking these very sort of folksy folktale questions. In fact, in my opinion, he acts much more like a ghost or an elf than an alien. But he talks to Woody, and he asks, who are you, and what are those lights over there? And Woody starts talking about the nearby city. He goes, well, what's a city? And after Woody basically explains what a city is, Cold says, oh, well, we have those too, but we call them gatherings. Cold always speaks in the plural, as if he's representing others. He is representing his people, his race. Now, he is going to claim to come from a world called Elangulus, and that he is from outer space. Now, this is going to be sort of unique out of sight of the Derenberger family, where he is going to be associated with a spaceship or aliens. And there are a few other encounters that have been tied into this entity. But the other, again, they're going to be much more ghost-like, much more demon-like, as opposed to walking out of a weird-shaped UFO. In fact, there's going to be a report by two kids in New Jersey a full 17 days before Woody sees this or has this encounter that many people associate with cold. So in October 1966, about half a month before Woody said he saw what he saw, two boys walking home from New Jersey see this guy. He keeps smiling at him, and instead of a blue suit, he's wearing a green metallic suit. And basically he freaks them out and he chases them, and they escape. Now, this story got some play, some airtime. Did it get told? And it's very possible maybe there was some sort of twisted person trying to play a joke, scaring these two kids. But did that story get to, West Virginia in a couple of weeks? I doubt it. I don't think that Woody ever said that he was aware of the story. But because there were, not by the two boys, but other people around who claimed to have seen UFOs at the time, and because vaguely tall, blondish, smiling guy who keeps smiling seemed like a description of Indrid Cole, this was tied in as an Indrid Cole sighting before Woody. Now, shortly after, where all this high weirdness is happening in West Virginia, one of the daughters of one of the families that had seen the Mothman claimed to have seen this man smiling, staring over her bed while she was about to go to sleep. Because of the proximity, and mainly because Keel, people, the book ties them, the book, The Mothman Prophecy, ties these two incidents together. Although I'm pretty sure, as I remember, the man that she said she saw, his main thing is he kept smiling and is grinning and scaring her, which I get. Somebody smiling, coming into your room, smiling and not talking, that's pretty disturbing. But I'm pretty sure she didn't say he said anything, and he definitely didn't identify himself as Indrid Cole. Now, Indrid and his extended family, he would bring children, would come and see Woody's family. In fact, there's a story about, everybody looking around waiting for his UFO to land so they could see, the Indrid Cole, and he drives up in a Volkswagen. And everybody around the house doesn't realize it's him. And this is where, according to his daughter, again, we get more sort of this folklore legend. Again, I would almost mischievous spirits more than aliens. And where she says, that there are certain spaceships that are flying by and that they have evil aliens in them, but that they didn't harm people, but they would come and steal things to inconvenience you. And I don't think anyone doubts that they believe it. I think that especially what he went through and everything, that Woody Derenberger, people believe that he believes. They may not believe that, he saw an alien or a spirit or something, but I think most people believe that he believed. And the same thing, if you listen to interviews that his daughter has done, even, decades later, she comes off as at least that she believes this. And other sort of unusual high weirdness things, such as, the daughters could come, but after a certain age, they don't go out into space anymore because girls just don't explore space. So Tania Derenberger eventually writes down her version of the story in a book called Beyond Langulos, which is basically her growing up with being occasionally visited by this alien entity and its family. And she remembers But yeah, he smiled once in a while, but not like crazy. Not that smile that her father latched onto, especially the first time. That he smiled often, he was friendly enough, but that he had a complete variety of facial expressions. In fact, it definitely does seem that there was somebody who eventually or originally took the mantle of Indrid Colt that would visit the Derenbergers. And like I said, it appeared according to his daughter, at Woody's funeral, but that nobody recognized him. And not only that was, it was a funeral, so he wasn't grinning and smiling. He wore regular black clothes, and he had aged. He'd grown older, just like human beings. And she does have a picture that does appear in her book, and it looks like a picture of anybody's, older uncle attending a family event wearing black clothing and a white hat. Despite, some fame, and she did write a book, Derenberger and his daughter really didn't make any money off of this. And he's going to go through a lot. He's going to disappear for weeks at a time, and sometimes that may be accredited to going to another planet, and sometimes it'll be bluntly he's just sleeping off a drunk. And I bring this up honestly not to ridicule the guy, not to say, he was a drunk, then he made this all up. More, he may have had some heavy drinking issues that most good old boys in West Virginia in, the 60s had. But that it was the stress of these events and everything that happened, whether it was imaginary or real, or whether he believed it or not, created a lot of difficulties for him, possibly even ruining his marriage. Now, there's different versions about this, and his wife was definitely long-suffering. But there are accounts, especially from his daughter, that Woody would come up to his wife and say, you went to the grocery store, and you ran into these people randomly, and you bought this. And he said that, the aliens would tell him that they were sort of... And she seemed to feel that he was spying on her because of this. And this definitely led to serious stress in the family. Eventually, they are going to leave. And one of the things that Keel points out, that Woody ends up with a younger, more attractive partner. And that this, Keel points out, sort of the way that only Keel can get away with, is that that's not uncommon for, UFO gurus. But I don't think that relationship lasted very long. Nowadays, thanks to the internet, Indrid Colt has become more of a creepypasta. He's associated with a lot of boogeyman-type characters. But he started because a salesman driving his truck on Interstate 77 claimed that he saw something back in 1966. And whether he did or didn't, or thought he did and didn't, whether it was a real person who was maybe tricking him, or I don't know. But what I do know is that Indrid Colt is a true American cryptid, a true American entity, in the ways that, say, Bigfoot is, or the Greys. Maybe he's not as well known, but for those who really study high weirdness, or the occult, or the mysterious, or just the strange, he in a lot of ways typifies these new post-Kennedy fears that America is going to go through. That this new time, he's sort of straddling between the contactees, who are our space brothers coming to warn us about dropping bombs and how we should love our God creator and teach the Russians to love. And these gray aliens that are landing in farmhouses and literally ripping people from their bed and taking them to places to experiment. He's this entity in between. He's leaving the old world contactees and entering the new world abductees. He's the last of the great alien gurus, or mass known alien gurus. And in some ways, as scary as the Grinning Man is, I'm almost nostalgic for his old ways of folksy legends and benign messages. This is David Heath, and this has been part of the People's Guide to the Cthulhu Mythos. And hopefully, starting our new season soon, we're going to continue with some interviews, as well as some stories about the things that interest us the most.
Thank you once again for listening to People's Guide to the Cthulhu Mythos. You can help show your support by going to the show notes and following any of the links that'll tell you how to support the show and how to support our guests. And thank you to all of our guests who you can find in the show notes. Rate, review, subscribe, and remember, patrons get priority access to asking us questions, suggesting topics, even, I don't know, submitting stuff. Actually, you don't have to be a patron to submit anything. That's how Dave got on the show, and that's how you can get on the show too. It's the People's Guide to the Cthulhu Mythos. Rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends. Thank you for listening. Back to the show.
Hello, everyone. We are back. Me and Dave, to my virtual right as always. And Dave, how's it going since the break?
We had, that happened. We had a break.
We did have a break. So, dimensional shamblers. What are they? Where do they come from? And how do you get rid of them?
So, I'm not sure, too. So, if the word dimensional shambler comes up, I've got to reread the story.
Yeah.
But they first appear in the Horror in the Museum.
Yes, they do. Yeah. Just kind of, just like not even in action, just its skin, just a stuffed dimensional shambler.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that we note that the Horror in the Museum is a joint work by Lovecraft and Hazel Helt.
Yeah.
And with all of their combined work, I don't think anyone really knows how much is Hazel and how much is Howard.
Yeah.
I've always got the feeling that she was one of his more active contributors.
Yeah.
And that he did, but that still he did more than just edited her grammar.
Yeah. No. They're pretty cool. And I have to say, they have appeared in Horror in the Museum, I think it was. And they're described originally in Clark Ashton's story, The Hunters from Beyond. And I know they appear in Call of Cthulhu, the RPG, and also the video game Quake, because as we've mentioned before, Sandy Peterson, who was the original author of the Call of Cthulhu RPG, was also one of the major people making the Quake video game back in 93, 94, 95, 96, 97. Yeah, that's like, no, because Doom came out in 93, so that would have meant that Quake came out in, 95, or something like that. Anyway, what else can we say about Dimensional Shamblers?
Well, and to say something here, too,
Sure.
definitely you hit on. So they appear in Hunters from Beyond, which I believe was published in 1932.
Yeah.
The Horror of the Museum is 1933.
Yeah.
But that's published dates.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone knows better than me, by all means correct us, but I believe that The Horror in the Museum was written first.
Oh, yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
Published first.
Yeah, something very similar happened with Tsathoggua. I think Clark Ashton Smith created Tsathoggua and wrote about Tsathoggua, but Lovecraft stuff got published first, which is kind of an oddity considering the fact that Clark Ashton Smith generally got published more than Lovecraft, but
and faster.
And faster, yeah. Because he didn't handwrite everything, and what's that?
Definitely is a chain of writing where people are bouncing things off and giving suggestions.
Yeah.
So, I don't know this for a fact, but everything that I've read is that the concept came from either Lovecraft or Hazel Held.
Yeah.
Not that Smith couldn't have created something like this. Mm-hmm. Not that it's not very close to some of the other Smith creations.
Sure.
I just don't think Smith, Smith was a very, I'm just going to say it. Smith was probably autistic, which is fine. But autistic people tend to be honest as they see the world. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I don't think that he would lie about it. So, and I don't think he would take credit for it if it wasn't from him. Mm-hmm. I think it was just a very common practice to share ideas before they were published in that group.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of sharing of ideas and ideas that were kind of like, I don't know, worked on a little bit, workshopped, I guess, through letters and correspondence in general.
A lot of beta, what we call now beta writing.
Yeah. So, okay.
And one of the things is that in the Horror of the Museum, the Shamblers described it as black.
Yeah.
In Hunters from Beyond, it's kind of a pale gray.
Yeah.
But they could be, different colored cats, different colored people, different colored, Shamblers. Oh. But also the one in the museum is dead.
Yeah, I was going to say the one, it may have oxidized or not properly handled and, or it may be fake. That's the other thing.
Fake or turned to leather.
Yeah. But they're generally like described as like ape-like, kind of canine-like, but also insectoid at the same time. Has long arms with huge claws. That's kind of how they look in Quake. And I'm looking at an illustration that I'm not sure where it's from of one, and it looks like it looks like an ape with no eyes and a big giant toothy mouth and claws. But they come from outside of our dimension. That's known, and they can pretty much move in between dimensions, but it's not like they're using a spell. It's like, I think, a natural ability, if I was going to guess anything. And they hunt people, and then they suck them into their own dimension. I don't know.
so maybe a couple of things here. Mm-hmm. Apes are they're this huge feature in pulp.
Yes,
and part of that because you're going into Africa. And that's what gorillas aren't. Gorillas have only been scientifically proven, I think, somewhere in the 20s.
Okay.
But we see, of course, the white apes and
Congo?
No, I was going to say the Pin story where Lovecraft,
Arthur Germain?
Yes, thank you. Which we'll leave it. But, I mean, it shows that there's some interest in apes. Mm-hmm. And then within a year that these stories are going to be released, the biggest of all ape stories, King Kong.
Yeah.
But, and whether they knew it was, I mean, I believe there was a lot of hype because that was the special effects movie.
Yeah.
And so definitely you've got interest in apes. You got the possibility, we talked about our part one, the cover article, mm-hmm. Often have apes because they're interesting to draw.
Yeah.
So that, and then let's not just make them regular monkeys.
Sure.
Let's give them some insect things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's make them alien in some way, and Let's take a couple of things that are scary and smash them all together, like things that you normally see on the covers of pulp magazines. People being attacked by apes, people being attacked by dogs, people being attacked by giant insects. I mean, if you look at covers of pulps, there are so many dogs attacking people, insects attacking people. When you go into like the more science-y fiction stuff, and the more naturalistic pulps not always have, but a lot of the times have like gorillas or gorilla-like creatures or like gorilla human mixes, chimera, I don't know. But yeah, definitely. I always never really think about that, how gorillas at some point in time were kind of this like shorthand for like this scary stuff about like what's in Africa that we don't know about. I don't know. It's an interesting thing, and I know that we've talked about like the people who made gorilla suits for the old black and white films, the 2-3 reelers and whatnot. Like whether it be Robot Monster or... Oh, no, wait a minute. That wasn't you I talked. That was Derek M. Cook that I talked to about.
we look a lot alike.
I know. But yeah, no, Derek and I talked about... in his episode about Robot Monster, about how there was a bunch of people who would make their own gorilla suits for these movies in the 30s and 40s. 20s, 30s, and 40s, and then the 50s too, because then that kind of stuff kind of slowly went into B movies and such. I mean, I don't have to tell you this, but yeah, no, it's interesting how gorillas are big in pulp, gorillas are big in B movies, and just kind of like there's this, I don't know, level of quality that runs through it all. I'm not going to say it's high quality. I'm just going to say that it's quality.
But it's something that the audience can relate to.
Oh, definitely.
And if you can draw a warrior, you can draw a monkey probably. Or an ape.
Yeah, and that way you can also like put big sharp teeth and claws on like some sort of like, I don't know, monkey human hybrid. So what can these things do? Because if we're going to talk about how to use one in your D&D game, we should probably talk about, I don't know, what they can do. I mean, they can go between dimensions. They can kidnap people. I mean, do you then have a, I don't know, journey into the astral plane or outer planes, or I don't know.
So the only time I've ever really used this was in a GURPS. It was either a Warehouse 23 or possibly a Black Ops, where basically the creature is sent as an assassin. And that's the first place I've ever seen them, was reading about them in Call of Cthulhu books. And, then so I read the game books.
Yeah.
And then I finally got into the revisions and the co-writings, but I got into this case before, And that's, I think, how it's usually used as sort of a hit demon.
Ooh.
It's something summoned in to take out, or because the party went to someplace they should not have been.
Okay. Because my first thought was, what if you used if you used a dimensional shambler in place of like a Grendel, in place of Grendel for like a D&D, Beowulf, Call of Cthulhu hybrid. I'm just like this big hulking thing with claws and teeth that could, attack a bunch of dudes and then get out of there. I mean, it's a little harder to track it back to its lair, and what the heck is its mother? Other things I've thought of is like if you caught an extra dimensional shambler, what kind of magical items could you make with the leather or with the teeth or the claws, or would it have any magical properties? Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I think about when I run across monsters like this. It's like, oh, could you tan the hide and make boots that aren't necessarily ethereal, but have some sort of, I don't know, maybe cure boots in a certain way that make it so that it's a dimensional anchor? Who knows?
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think, and again, this is probably much more of a modern.
Sure.
But instead of calling the dimensional shambler, go to their dimensions.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which is sort of like, I guess, a sort of oozy liquid dimension that you get trapped in.
Okay.
But maybe the secret government agency, or maybe your wizard has a spell, or the agency is discovered. You can go there, but you got to wear like a class 4 hazmat suit.
Ooh.
And everything is, it's like moving through molasses, and so I think that would be, especially if you got sort of a scientific.
Oh yeah.
And where it's kind of hinted in the stories that they sort of, if you go there, they just pick you off. But now they've got to hunt them, but they're hunting you in their world, what they know.
So the thing that's popping into my head right now is, isn't this just basically the Demigorgon from Stranger Things?
You definitely. You know what? I would say that they are very closely resembled. Yes.
I'm like, wait a minute. It's like the Stranger Things. What did they call it? They called it a Demigorgon from
Demigorgon,
yeah. Okay. But yeah, no, it's like I'm thinking about it. It goes between a place that's kind of dirty and gross that is parallel to our world, or its dimension is right next to ours, so it makes it really super easy for this thing to hop back and forth. It can take people. It can probably hurt people on both sides, but it definitely takes people and consumes them in its own world. And as we've discussed on the show in the past, Stranger Things is definitely a throwback. I mean, definitely has some stuff that's very Lovecraftian or Kingian. I don't know. What do you call stuff that's Stephen King? Kingian?
Yeah.
Do we have a word for it yet?
Also very Spielbergian.
Yeah.
But also, if we're gonna Gygaxian.
Yeah. I was gonna say it's 80s movies, it's Dungeons and Dragons, but all this stuff goes back to the pulps. It's like B movies, Dungeons and Dragons. So much of this stuff takes its inspiration from the pulps. Like even like comic books, like we've discussed, like the people who read that stuff in the 20s and 30s, they were kids or young adults or even middle-aged men that, the decades after they had jobs in the creative field, and they brought that stuff with them. And Dimensional Shambler is just, I'm thinking about it now, it's like, not only do we have like the old ape connection, but we also have like new stuff that comes off of this stuff too now. It's like, I feel like in horror anthologies, you always have like kind of like, what if you had a monster that could go between dimensions? There's like stuff like this in Tales from the Dark Side, Twilight Zone, various iterations of your night galleries and stuff like that will generally have an episode kind of about a monster like this. Maybe that monster speaks, or maybe it's something that I don't know. It's now that I think about it, it's like this is very much kind of like Hounds of Tindalos in some ways, that it's like something that comes from a place that if you need to get something back, or if you need to rescue someone, it's not going to happen, because not only is it outside of space, with the Hounds of Tindalos, it's outside of time, and probably shouldn't mess with time anyway. But oh man, the whole concept of a dimension that's right next to ours, that something can like hop back and forth and grab stuff. I think D&D also has the ethereal filter, or is that Planescape? I'm not quite sure. It's one of the two.
I think it may have started in Planescape, and then...
Oh, I meant Pathfinder. I can't remember if it's D&D or Pathfinder.
It's 3.5.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think so too. So, yeah, you have the ethereal filter, which is like kind of like a thief version of this guy, or a rogue version of a dimensional shambler. But yeah, these dimensional shamblers... Oh, scary, because it's like, how do you defend yourself against a dimensional shambler? What if your kingdom, what if your, I don't know, neck of the woods, what if where you're at, places that you're traveling from, are being attacked by multiple? I don't think dimensional shamblers are the one-trick pony that people generally think of them as. Is like, you use them as like a interdimensional assassin, or a monster that you call up to devour someone, or something like that. It's like, I don't know. What if someone who killed one once then figured out that like their teeth or their finger, bone, nail things have some sort of magical properties? What if it has some sort of like
their ichor?
Yeah, has like a lot of like super awesome magical properties, and a wizard says, "Hey, I need you to get me, I don't know, 30 kilograms of this ichor. Unfortunately, you only get about like 5 ounces per shambler, so get going." I don't know, stuff like that. Hunt stuff for, profit. Let's see, what other kind of stuff do you think you could do with a dimensional shambler? You could have, you could play monsters. I mean, you could play monsters and play a dimensional shambler. I mean, that's a little bit of a different game than D&D, but I mean, I don't know. I'm sure at some point in time, everyone's played a game where they play monsters instead of PCs, or maybe that was just my group. But
and they are hunters.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they are.
So you could definitely do a predator type campaign, whether it be medieval, or it could be that this jumps to this dimension because it's wants the challenge of hunting what's here.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it could be something like the party is trying to rescue the princess, or something, and then all of a sudden they start seeing deer being chopped up, and then they see the enemy, and they have to they rescue the princess, and they have to escape back with this thing hunting them.
Yeah.
And purely for sport.
Yeah, or what if a king hires you, or a royal person, or someone of importance hires you to rescue back someone who they think was kidnapped by a rival kingdom. That rival kingdom knows nothing. They don't know anything. There's nothing. Maybe you have some sort of magic guy at the rival kingdom who's like, this sounds like the work of this. And then you have to go and research that. And then you have to do this, you have to do that. And then slowly work your way to a parallel dimension of slime. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Or, it could be added, you could add it pretty much into any existing campaign. It's just something to throw something on. And it could be that the wizard wants revenge on you.
Yeah.
It could be, that you're just in its territory or the territory it's hunting. So that, there's a lot of different choices other than, way a lot of us use it as just sort of the mystical assassin.
Yeah. So I just read, while they seem to grab their victims, they usually use a form of hypnosis. I hadn't even thought about that or heard about that. That Shamblers use hypnosis and then pull people into a dimension. I mean, there's something else to think about.
It could start out as a missing persons case.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's how you could start it out in your Cthulhu by Gaslight, your Ravenloft campaign. Ravenloft's a little bit more modern than your standard D&D. Because you need electricity for Frankensteins. No, but you do need electricity for brain golems and stuff like that. But and I was thinking wow, you could do that for Shadowrun too. It's just not a lot of interdimensional stuff with games more like that.
Well, what reminds me of in Shadowrun is the bug totems.
Oh yeah,
especially the Manus totem.
Yeah. I hadn't even thought about Bug City, but that would be pretty cool. I could. You could even do a Dreamlands campaign.
Absolutely.
Because if they can come through what if you end up finding a link from the Dreamlands to our world that you have to go through the gray slime first, the stuff that consumes people. Maybe figure out how to get a raft or build something that you can float through. Or heck, maybe even you're in the Dreamlands and somehow you end up in that in-between world and you have to figure out how to get back to the Dreamlands or back to the waking world. I don't know.
Or you could do a Bug City campaign. For D&D.
Yeah.
This old, city has been taken over by these dimensional Shamblers and, try to retrieve any artifacts or treasures or eventually wipe them out to reclaim the city. Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of what other kind of stuff could you do? I bet there's probably some way that you could make it so that dimensional Shamblers can't dimensionally shamble. Maybe if you throw some sort of combination of, I don't know, liquid silver and mercury, and salt, or I don't know.
Destroy the MacGuffin.
Yeah. Some way you have to destroy the MacGuffin. I don't know. I kind of like the idea of making some sort of salt with mercury, silver, and I don't know, a bunch of scary things, and which getting the components for could be part of its own. A wizard's I need to do this thing. I need to catch this monster, but first I need you to go out and get all this stuff for me, and then do all that, and then that could end up being its own adventure there. But I don't know, dimensional Shamblers, pretty cool. Also pretty scary. So. Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, hey everyone, it is the end of the show. If you're still here, congratulations. Something I want.
If you're not, please, hopefully you weren't grabbed by a dimensional Shambler and returned to its dimension.
Exactly. What I wanted to say is, earlier I talked about astonishing stories of super science. As many of you know, we do an audiobook series during the weekday, and we are going to be covering astounding stories of super science.
That's astounding.
That's astounding indeed. For all of season 15, which is coming up in December, as soon as we hit, February. As soon as we hit February, season 15 starts, and we will be covering all kinds of cool things. I have to figure out what we're covering for the show, because I think I have one more episode before season 7, and that's going to be Dunwich and Ibon. And if not, that's going to be the first of season 15. And hey, if you are still listening, why not treat yourself to some Copper Cow coffee, Vietnamese pour over? Just, tear the little paper out, pour your coffee in, let it sit for a little bit, and you have got some really, really fine coffee. Cheaper than Starbucks, cheaper than most stuff. It's like $1.40 for this, and it comes with creamers or not with creamers, depending on what you got going on. Also, I would like to shout out to Tazos Down Ground Chocolates out of Somerset, Massachusetts. Love that stuff. I picked some up for the holidays, and it was delicious. Love the peppermint bark. And also, there's no dairy in it, which is good for me because I'm lactose intolerant. And finally, I want to give a shout out to Donner Musical Instruments. I just picked a new MIDI controller up because my old one got busted, and I now have a new keyboard. So look forward to some more keyboard music in the show. So, Dave, anything you have to say before we head off into that frightful night?
We'll see you next week.
All right, sounds good. And rate, review, subscribe, tell your ma, tell your pa. We'll ship you down to South Agua. Check out pgttcm.com for that t-shirt. And, we got a new t-shirt in the shop. It is looks like a death metal shirt. It's got a skull on it, and then People's Guide to the Cthulhu Mythos written in that typeface that looks like cracked vinyl seating. So, yeah. All right. We'll see you next time, everyone.
Bye.